Let's look at Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah!
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Now, the Lions have made significant improvements across the board at every single position this offseason, right? Their wide receiver position is probably a top 2 position in the division and maybe a top 5 position in the conference right now. Their offensive line is a top 5 unit in the NFL. Their edge rushers are incredibly deep and very, very talented. Their secondary is very young and very, very talented. But if there was one area where the Detroit Lions were struggling on paper, it would be the linebacker room, right? If they were going to have an Achilles heel this year, it would be at linebacker. And today we're going to talk about the linebacking room. We're going to talk about the Lions' biggest weakness on paper and whether the weakness is going to be as impactful and as detrimental to the Detroit Lions season as a lot of people are making it out to be, or whether or not the Detroit Lions can deal with this weakness and still find success in 2022. So with all that being said, let's get straight on into taking a look at the Lions' biggest weakness going into the 2022 season. Now, one of the big reasons that people don't like the linebacking core is because there's not a definitive star. There's not the number one guy, and there's nobody right now that is going to be the easy, definitive number one starter, right? You have Alex Anzalone at linebacker, you have Derek Barnes, Jarrad Davis, Chris Board, Malcolm Rodriguez, James Houston, Julian Okwara, and Josh Woods as your linebacking core. Out of that group, there is no star linebacker, there is no Pro Bowler, there is no even definitive number one guy, right? Out of that list, I could see 4 to 5 different linebackers starting for the Detroit Lions, right? I could see Alex Anzalone obviously starting. He started a season ago as a captain. Derek Barnes, I think, can start this season. Jarrad Davis can start this season. Even Malcolm Rodriguez, I think, can start this season. And I think Julian Okwara will make a push at strong side linebacker as well, which is where they're playing him in training camp and during OTAs so far. So there's a lot of different players that can start at the linebacker position, but the Lions don't really play that many linebackers. They're playing a 4-2-5 system next year, emphasizing the edge rushers and the secondary and minimizing the effect and number of linebackers that are going to be on the field. But we will talk about that in just a little bit. First off, I want to talk about the versatility that this linebacker crew has, because although there's no Darius Leonard or Bobby Wagner or Luke Kuechly in this linebacking core, right? There's no All-Pro, there's no Pro Bowler. There is a lot of versatility in this linebacking core, and they do have a player that can fit every single role that your defense would ever need. You talk about Derek Barnes, Jarrad Davis, Malcolm Rodriguez, James Houston, and Julian Okwara. They're all very young linebackers with a lot of potential, and they have a lot of room to grow into good linebackers in the NFL. Alex Anzalone and Chris Boards are veterans, and they're leaders on this team. They've been in the NFL for a little while, so they have a good mix of veterans and rookies. They have a good mix of experience and youth and talent in the room, even if there isn't a Pro Bowler or All-Pro. You look at the lack of talent, but there's a surplus in versatility, right? Jarrad Davis, James Houston, and Julian Okwara can all be pass rushers, can all blitz the quarterback really, really well, and they can be your 5th rusher. They can be your 6th rusher from a stand-up off-ball position. They can all do that at a very, very high level. You look at Malcolm Rodriguez and Alex Anzalone, they can both cover pretty well, right? They are guys that have good hip fluidity, guys that understand passing patterns pretty good, and they could be your pass coverage linebackers. You look at Derek Barnes, who I think is maybe the best all-around linebacker. He can blitz, he can cover, and he is probably the most secure tackler in this linebacking core. Chris Board and James Houston and Josh Woods can all be special teams contributors. There is a position for everybody here. There is a role that is filled by every single linebacker in this room, because if you want a pass coverage linebacking set, you have two linebackers that can cover the pass. If you want blitzers, you want pass rushers, you have 3 guys that are good and excel at blitzing and going after the quarterback. You want just an all-around good linebacker that can tackle, cover, and blitz the quarterback if you really need to. Derrick Barnes is that guy. Derrick Barnes played over 400 snaps for the Lions last season and was quietly one of their more productive and efficient rookies from the 2021 class. He can do everything, and I think he will be the #1 linebacker this year because I think he is the most talented all-around linebacker. And again, there is no star, but there's a lot of versatility, there's a lot of different roles that can be filled, and there isn't really a weakness to this linebacking core, right? There's not a star, but there's not something where it's like, okay, if we need our linebackers to cover, there's nobody that can do that. If we need our linebackers to go after the quarterback, there's nobody that can do that. If we need somebody to run and chase, right? If we need to run and chase linebackers to get to the edge and make tackles on some speedy running backs, Davis and Barnes can do that very well. There is no role that our linebacking group cannot accomplish, and I think that is a strength of this linebacking core. I think there's a lot of different roles that can be filled by different players on this roster, which I think in part makes up for that and the competition level that is going to force everybody to get better and play better is going to help somewhat make up for the lack of star power. But although the Lions don't have a superstar, you don't need a superstar linebacker in the NFL. And this is why I tweeted out a couple days ago that I think a lot of people are overvaluing the linebacker position right now in the Detroit Lions and in the NFL, because truly, linebacker isn't as big of a need as it once was, right? A long time ago, even a couple of years ago, right? Linebacker was a huge deal, right? Bobby Wagner and Luke Kuechly were some of the best defensive players in the NFL, right? Patrick Willis for the 49ers was one of the best defensive players in the NFL. Linebacker was a huge need. You needed to be able to stop the run. You needed to be able to, diagnose plays really quickly. You needed your linebackers to be some of the top in the NFL if you wanted to be successful. But now, that's not really the case. The running game is far from what it used to be in the NFL, and now it's about air raid, it's about passing yards, it's about pushing the football down the field and getting huge chunk yard explosive plays. And that is where the Lions are built to succeed, right? Linebackers aren't super important right now. Every emphasis right now from NFL teams is on the edge rushers and the secondary, because in order to stop the quarterback, you have to get to the quarterback and you have to force turnovers from when the quarterback puts the ball in risky situations. That doesn't come from the linebacking core. That comes from the secondary and the edge rushing position. And I don't think there's a better example of that than the Super Bowl matchup from a season ago. If I were to ask you, name a linebacker from the Super Bowl, a starting linebacker from the Super Bowl, what player would you name? There's no Bobby Wagner. There's no Pro Bowler. There's no All-Pro. Devondre Campbell for the Packers wasn't playing in the Super Bowl. He was an All-Pro. Bobby Wagner, best linebacker in football, wasn't playing. Fred Warner, one of the better linebackers in football, wasn't playing. Darius Leonard didn't even make the playoffs as one of the best linebackers in the NFL. The starting linebackers in Super Bowl 56 were Leonard Floyd, Ernest Jones, Jermaine Pratt, and Logan Wilson. None of those linebackers, I would say, are even top 10 in the NFL right now. None of them. No linebacker that started in the Super Bowl is a top 10 player at their position in the NFL, because you do not need an elite linebacking core to be successful in today's NFL, right? Why did the Bengals go to the Super Bowl? Because their pass rush was very good and their secondary improved with Jesse Bates being the main secondary player in that room. Why did the Rams go to the Super Bowl? It's because Aaron Donald and Von Miller were incredible as a pass rushing duo, and Jalen Ramsey locked down the #1 cornerback, and their secondary played really well. You saw on their run to the Super Bowl, the Rams didn't sign a linebacker. The Rams signed a safety in the secondary because they needed secondary help. Secondary in pass rush is what wins you Super Bowls right now, not the linebacker position. You want to go to a couple years ago when Brady won the Super Bowl in Tampa Bay, right? It's because they had a pass rush, and it's because Antoine Winfield Jr. was one of the better safeties in the NFL, and their secondary played very well, right? They won that Super Bowl because they got to Patrick Mahomes, not because the linebackers stop the run all day, not because Devin White was some incredible force, right? He made a couple plays for sure, but they didn't win because of their linebackers. They won because of their secondary and because of their pass rush. And if you go to any Super Bowl over the past 5 to 10 years, you're going to see that secondary and pass rush wins you Super Bowls, not necessarily great linebacker play. Linebacker play is great, right? If you want to have an elite linebacker, it will make your team better. That's why the Rams gave Bobby Wagner a lot of money. It's why Darius Leonard got paid a ton of money. It's why Fred Warner is going to make a lot of money next offseason when his contract expires from his rookie deal. But you do not necessarily need a top 10 linebacker in the NFL. What you need is role players at the linebacker position and stars on the edge and the secondary, and I think the Lions have the opportunity to do that. I won't say that they have a star edge rusher right now, but I think Aiden Hutchinson can get there. I would say they have a star in the secondary with Amani Oruwariye right now, and that's what's going to help the defense be successful. So, with that being the case, is the linebacker position the weakest position on the Lions right now? Yes. It is. It is the weakest position by far on paper for the Detroit Lions next season. But should it be the biggest concern for Lions fans? I don't think so, because linebacker is a good position to have, right? If you have an elite linebacker, it's good for your team, but you don't need elite linebackers, right? Linebacker cores of Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt took a Cincinnati Bengals defense to top 10 in the NFL and took them to the Super Bowl. A linebacking core of Leonard Floyd and Ernest Jones took the Los Angeles Rams to the Super Bowl. You can succeed with role players at your linebacking core without overpaying for a huge big name linebacker. What you need in the NFL is pass rush and secondary, and that's what the Detroit Lions have. On top of that, the Lions, like I mentioned, are only running a 4-2-5 with 2 linebackers on the field at a time because they are putting emphasis on their strengths and they are trying to minimize the impact of their weaknesses. I do not believe the linebacking core is bad enough to lose the Lions football games. I do not believe the Lions linebacking core is poor enough to cost the Lions competition in the NFL season, and I really don't think it's as big of an issue as a lot of people are making it out to be. Is it a problem? Sure. Do I want the Lions to address linebacker at some point in the near future, either in next year's draft or next year's free agency, or maybe even a late trade this year? Sure. But right now, the linebacking core isn't as bad as I think a lot of people are making it out to be. And even if it is, linebacker is not the most important position on the team. And I would argue it's the least important position on the defense right now. But with all that being said, that is all for you guys today. Let me know what you guys think about the linebacking core. Are you worried about it? Do you think this linebacking core is bad enough to hold us back in 2022? Or do you think that they can, or do you think the Lions can improve and have a good record despite the lack of star power in their linebacker room? I'd be very curious what you guys think. But with all of that being said, that is all for you guys today. Thank you all so very much for watching, and until next time, and as always, go Lions.